Actually, good afternoon to everyone. I'm very pleased to be actually acting as the moderator for that session related to how to optimize processes regarding the certification and the evaluation of medical devices in the EU and the US. So actually, as you can hear, we'll be having that discussion all together and among the panelists, all in English, since we have the privilege to have one additional panelist remotely based in the US, coming from the FDA. So basically, in a nutshell, I just would like to first of all thank PariSanté Campus for this great opportunity, and I'm sure exciting discussion on this rather important topic for most of you today. Actually, in a nutshell, just a word of introduction regarding myself. As I said, I'm Christophe Amiel. I'm working as a senior director and digital lead at Voice and Consulting, which is actually an international consulting company with expertise in basically regulatory science and market access strategies, primarily for the medtech and the digital health. So without being said, I'd like actually to, of course, briefly introduce our distinguished panelists, and I think they are probably already well known from most of you. So we have the pleasure to have Thierry Sirdé, Director Medical Device, Cosmetic and In Vitro Diagnostic Department from the INSM. We have Lionel Dreux, who is the actual president of GMED. And as I said before, last but not least, we have the pleasure to have with us Sean Forrest from the Digital Health Center of Excellence, Office of Strategy, Partnership and Technology Innovation at the US FDA. So first, I just wanted to make a check on that. Sean, welcome with us, and can you hear us loud and clear?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly well. Thank you very much. So I'd like to propose that we kick off actually the discussion with our first panelist, and basically, you know, I think we can probably first pick the brain from Thierry in terms of opening reflections on these key topics today. So Thierry, we know that obviously confidence in the regulatory system comes with a good understanding of its structure and functioning, obviously. And what are, in your view, the key aspects in the medtech product governance in Europe, which, according to you, efficiently support CE marking processes?
Thank you for this question. And obviously, the system, the regulatory system, is different from US and in Europe. Basically, the difference is not in the content of the technical documentation or even in the structuration of the quality management system. It's more on the process to get the market clearance, where the role of the competent authority, national competent authority in France and for each other member state in Europe, is not the same than other one. And in principle, the role of the competent authority is not grant a market authorization, but on the pre-market phase, the conformity of the product is in the responsibility of the manufacturer with a link with third-party bodies, so-called notified body, and like GMED, in order to build up the conformity of the product. So it's very important to understand that the link between a manufacturer and the competent authority and a competent authority in Europe is not the same than in other than for the FDA, for example. And but after the setup of the conformity of the product is based on the new regulation with the demonstration of essential requirement of safety and performance, with a setup of a quality management system, and all are balanced by the risk linked to the use of product. It's very essential for the manufacturer to understand that he has own tools in his proper hands, and he should make choice in order to find the right pathway to go to the conformity. it's not the competent authority which ask to do some test or some compliance with some standard, but it's a choice of the manufacturer to bring its own conformity. And after, the role of the notified body is to not to check the conformity of all the system and all the product. It's always in the end, and the declaration of conformity is always signed by the manufacturer and issued by the manufacturer, but the role of notified body will be to check some aspect either of the product based on test on the product, based on analysis of technical file, and on the ability of the quality management system to produce the product. So after there is a convergence on the means to prove the conformity. Obviously, we can use standard, ISO, European standard, national standard. It's always the same system, the same goals. You have to demonstrate that the standard is able to show the conformity with the essential requirement. The convergence is important, and there is the IMDRF, namely, which is an informal network through all the world international medical device regulatory forum, which has issued, for example, in the field of software, some guidance in order that we can speak with the same language, namely with the FDA, with the Canada, and some other country and or area in the world about qualification of software, about classification, about clinical evaluation, and about risk analysis. So we saw that there is no much difference between the level of proof, the kind of proof you should set up to demonstrate the conformity, but it's a process to go to the market, which is slightly different. Thank you. Just a word. Obviously, this is an harmonized regulation amongst all Europe countries. So there is a coordination between all competent authority with the European Commission at Brussels at strategical level, medical device coordination group. We discuss about the application of the regulation, and with a 30 expert group which develop guidance. So you can find guidance, you can find standard at European level, and obviously you have the right to use all other standard and guidance available to demonstrate this conformity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thierry, for this very quick landscape assessment on the regulatory side for CE marking, and also proper explaining of what is very key in the European system, meaning a proper articulation between the competent authority and the notified body, of course, on the end. If I may, I have actually a question more dedicated to you. We actually often hear that notified body continue to face high challenges in terms of reactiveness, in terms of operational bandwidth, in particular due to the MDR implementation. So what I would like to ask you is actually your take regarding GMED coping ability with the MDR transition process, and especially given the audience today, with maybe the more specific problematic of legacy device, which is actually fairly common in digital health.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us to this roundtable. Perhaps just beginning, because even if you said that GMED is well known for the attendance, I can perhaps give some words on GMED before answer to your question. GMED is a certification body, and we have been created for more than 25 years ago. We are a notified body according to the two regulations today in Europe, the MDR regulation and the IVDR regulation. IVDR is not one of those topics, but it's also another challenge. We are also a certification body according to ISO standards. And we are an auditing organization of the MDSAP program. The MDSAP program is a program well known by FDA because it's one of the competent authority which has decided to to put to define this program. It's a program to help manufacturers to get into 5 markets: the United States, Canada, Brazil, Japan, and Australia. And it's based on ISO standards and specific consideration and requirements for each countries. I think it's one of the links between the US and the European regulation, and perhaps we can get into more details on that program in our roundtable. Yes, what is the main challenge that we are facing today as a notified body? And I think it's not only the challenge of GMED, but all of the notified body in Europe. We have to recertify all the legacy device on the market. So thousands of products already on the market, according to in conformity with the directives, have to be recertified, completely recertified according to the regulations. So it's a huge amount of work. And at the beginning, the regulator decided to give to the industry and the notified body a transition period of 4 years, and the end of the transition period were at May 2024. So to do that, all of the notified body have to be designated. The designation for a notified body is the first step, and it's a long step. We, for an example, for GMED, we apply to be a notified body in 2018, just few months after the publication of the MDR, and we were notified in 2020. So more than two years of demonstration of competence, development of capacities, of competencies to be able to be designated as an MDR notified body, even if we were a designated notified body according to the directives. Why that? Because the rules for a notified body have changed. The level of competency has been increased with those regulations. And we have to transform all our staff qualified on directive to be qualified on regulation. It's a very important job. We have to train people, we have to supervise people to demonstrate that they are competent and able to do the evaluation, the audits of the respectively technical file and the quality management system. Just an idea, to qualify one people coming from the industry with a strong experience from the industry takes to us between 6 and 9 months. So that gives you an idea of the investment of effort that we have to do to be able to have the competency to do the job. The other challenge is to increase drastically the number of people qualified to answer to the needs of the manufacturer. One, we do a subsidiary, we decided in 2018 to make a subsidiary of GMED, because GMED was before a part of LNE, which is a public company, and we decided to make a subsidiary to give to GMED the opportunity, the ability, the agility to develop itself and to answer to those requirements. We were 150 in 2018. Now we are more than 300 people, and most of the increase of the staff is for clinician, evaluator, product reviewer, and auditors. So it gives you also an idea of what we have to do to answer to those challenges. And it's not sufficient today. It's not sufficient because recertification of all legacy device is a very important job, even if we well know those products, because we have certified it under directive. So today, our job is increase the capacity, develop the competency, and so it's only the only solution that we have to answer to those needs. Just to finish, we have the opportunity to have our own training center, which is also a training center available for our clients. And it's with this own training center, we have the opportunity to train our staff in good way, and so to perhaps have a shorter qualification path for those staff.
Thank you very much, Lionel, for all these details and transparency regarding the, I would say, the GML activities. I think it's very key for everybody to understand what is happening backstage, because I think we can really take the dimension of the work ahead, and also explaining actually a lot of what is perceived as a delay from the market, but in reality that is, I guess, for all for the good of the soundness of the C certification to be issued per MDR and IVDR principle. I'd like actually to direct the next question to you, Sean, just for you to come into play also with your FDA eyes. And Sean, speaking about US jurisdiction for medical device, just for you to know, the audience today is actually mostly composed of stakeholders concerned by highly disruptive type of medtech technologies. So my question to you is what you could actually tell us about specific programs or initiatives taken by the FDA for this medtech solution, very innovative, and in particular when I would say of a digital type.
Yeah, thanks. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this, and especially thank you for holding this in English. I would be very confused right now if you weren't. One thing that the FDA has been developing, it's been very focused on, first of all, having international consensus on the requirements and coming into line with there being an agreement on what should be required for any given device. Secondly, you're mentioning what I would term breakthrough devices, and that's a category of devices that we're very interested in and have just recently developed a program. It's called the Total Product Lifecycle Advisory Program, or TAP for short. And that's a program that is focused on these breakthrough devices and providing a way to have much closer interaction with the FDA in the development process early on to understand what the requirements will be, and to be able to have kind of closer interaction to get questions answered early so that they're more efficiently dealt with early in the life cycle. So I think that's one thing that I would point to. We're also certainly developing a number of guidance on topics that are related to digital health. In particular, artificial intelligence is a big topic that we're building better resources for, and very interested in making the process very clear for those types of devices. So I'll stop there and see if there's any follow-up questions about that.
Well, Sean, I'm sure you will get plenty by the end of this panel, but thanks a lot for the insights. And I think one of the key messages actually I take from what you said is the fact that if you want to have an intelligent discussion with a regulator on your innovative medtech technology, it's really a dance that you need to dance I will say between two persons. So I guess that the more exposure you can have from your product to the regulator, different forum and different, I would say, way to present what you're doing is also a way to de-risk, I would say, the regulatory pathway forward, and make sure that the regulator actually gets right the type of innovation you're in, and basically that you also get right the expectation they may have on you because of that innovation. So that's again very interesting, and maybe to echo what Sean started to explain from an FDA perspective, Thierry, maybe another question to you. The idea will be maybe to sort of echo what Sean said regarding, pre-sub or BTD type of initiative, and maybe discuss a bit of the counterpart that could be shared with the audience related to the assistance and support that innovation in medtech could get from European regulator, and maybe taking the specific case of INSM without looking too far away from us, maybe to explain how cool companies are facing issues with the determination of the medical device qualification, classification, or type of applicable CE requirements, or even design for the clinical indication might be receiving some support and feedback from the French competent authority.
Yes, innovation support was started at the NSM many years ago now, and we developed, namely in the field of medical device and IVD product, some process to give some advice in pre-market phase. Even it's not very easy from the European regulatory system perspective, because we are not in charge to deliver the authorization, the clearance to go to the market. It's not easy to provide advice in this step. But today we have a single point of contact for all innovative healthcare product, medicinal product, bio product, and obviously medical device and IVD product. More than the half of the application received are for the medical device side, and majority on software. So obviously we can give some advice on the qualification and classification of the project, and we can for the most innovative product and for the product which are very interested in terms of public health or patient, to support some way to determine the better regulatory path. And we have two possibility to have a presubmission of a clinical investigation. There is a part on the website of the ANSM dedicated to the application for this process. But if you want to come with an application to the NSM, please don't come with, "This is my project. What do you think about it?" Came with your project, and I think it's a medical device. I think it's a class 2A, for example. I'm not sure of that. I would like to, or I'm not sure of that, but the way to prove that it's class 2A and the way to prove that it's a medical device is that, and that. And we can discuss with you and debate to see if your position is strong. And it's a way to deal with you. The competent authority is not now your concept, what is your idea about your product. It's your product, and you can challenge me in order to see, okay, you're right, I can say your demonstration is wrong, so go ahead. So we have this kind of this process in France to help, namely on a very innovative product, and as I said, on software. And obviously, it's not only at the national level, and in the field of the implementation of the new regulation, I don't recall all the challenge we are facing today about the capacity and the recertification of legacy device. But don't forget that this very ambitious new regulation is to allow the placing on the market of safe and well-assessed innovative medical device. And namely, you can see the progress of the regulation, the new regulation from the directive, namely on software. I recall that the first directive was published in 1993. And if I well remember, it was the year when the first generation of patient chips were placed on the market. So no software, no cell phone, and so on. So this new regulation is more has more requirement, is more accurate to prove the conformity and to prove the fact that the device is performant and safe for the patient. And obviously, there is works done at European level. First of all, with the European Medicine Agency, which is have innovative task force, so much dedicated to combinated product or to product which medical device or IVD in touch with a medicinal product. For example, all software for personal medicine, companion diagnostic, obviously. In the new regulation, in the new medical device and IVD regulation, we set up capacity of scientific expertise at European level. There is 11 expert panel from different therapeutic domains. Their tasks are to assess a clinical evaluation plan for innovative and high-risk product. But and since the beginning of this year, there is a pilot phase in order to be able to issue scientific advice for manufacturer. So the innovation support is ongoing, is still ongoing, is already ongoing at EU level. And at last, as I said, there is a coordination at European level with this medical device coordination group, and namely some expert group under this strategic group, and namely the new and emerging technology group, which is deal with software issue and all innovative products. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thierry. And so what I hear is that, again, we have a very rich ecosystem in Europe regarding this type of either guideline or direct consultation with authorities, either at national or at European level. And the other take also what I heard from you, and not speaking for Sean, but very similar to what the FDA will be expecting as well in that consultation, is that the competent authority is not here to do your work. So if you want to speak with them, you need to be prepared. You need to have either data or at least a methodology for generating this data to discuss with them. But they won't be actually based on what you develop, I would say, shaping out your regulatory strategy and pathway. And that's something that you need, again, to be prepared to engage with them as a consultation. Lionel, may I actually dare a bit more, I would say, provocative question for you? We know that the European regulation for medical device is often judged as more demanding or, I would say, a little bit more time-consuming as compared to other international jurisdiction and the US in the first place. So first of all, I'd like to know what is your take on that. And secondly, maybe that we further elaborate on the fact that medtech regulation are meant to be normally concentrating on the same foundation when it comes in particular to safety and performance effectiveness principle regarding product design and validation. So could you actually further comment on that?
Yes, just perhaps to add something, you said that the competent authority is not here to do your job, but the notified body is not also here to do your job. And I think it's important. We are a third party which have to control the risk of conflict of interest. And so we are not able to give you any counsel. That's very important. We can do some pre-certification activities, which are very well defined by the regulators. But yes, it's important to say that. And we are not here to do your job. And so when we do the evaluation, we give you some results, which are non-compliances for sometimes, unfortunately. And you have to solve those non-compliances. And we are not able to give you the solutions to solve those non-compliances. So for your very interesting question, I think that the objective of all the regulation, and especially the European regulation and the US regulations, are quite the same. That it's the safety for patient and the user. And as Thierry said, the big difference is on the way to go on the market and the relations with the different parts and the process of evaluation. But most of the data that you have to put into your technical file for the FDA or for a notified body and also for the competent authority, because the technical file is not only for the notified body, but it's also for the competent authority. Most of the data are the same. When we talk about biocompatibility, sterility, packaging, special manufacturing process, all those data that you have to put on those topics are the same. You have to demonstrate that you are in compliance with the requirements for those different topics. And so you have the same tests or quite the same standards. And I'm convinced that if you work on a technical file for the European regulation, you also work for a technical file for the US market. Perhaps there are some specific divergence on that. I think one of the most important topic is the restriction that the regulation has put on the use of the equivalence. Yeah. I think it's perhaps the most important difference between both regulations, but on the other topics, it's the same. And for the QMS, quality management system, we use the same requirements, the same standards. So there is no difference between the quality management systems applied for demonstration of compliance in the US and in the EU. It's my point of view, perhaps shown as a different point of view, but it's my point of view.
Thank you, Lionel, and that's maybe an occasion for Sean to directly respond to you on that. And Sean, again, I think what basically has been stressed by Lionel is a good example. Once again, I think it's clear for all of us that there are foundations in common between the US and the EU on that particular standpoint, and at the same time, some specificities and some if not divergence, but actually things which will be very specific to a CE mark versus a 510K or de novo process. But Sean, the question I have for you is actually shedding light maybe on that delineation between a 510K process that normally most medtech company will dream of in order to easily penetrate the US market as compared to a de novo process, maybe to share a bit of your view in terms of that delineation with respect to the actual positioning that you want to give to your product for the US and in terms of the claims in particular you like to make. And maybe with a second focus, which is back to the equivalent that Lionel was speaking about, which is the fact that in medical device regulation, anything you claim, you need to prove. Which is also true for equivalence. So equivalent is not an open bar approach to do a Me Too strategy and a least burdensome approach to the US market. Is actually in the first place to be able to evidence that equivalence and back it up with data. So Sean, could we actually take your, take some comments from you on these particular aspects?
Yeah, certainly agree with the concept that features and the intended use of the device needs to be backed up by data. The idea of choosing a regulatory pathway in terms of whether you have to submit for a de novo or de novo classification for a novel device, or can position yourself as substantially equivalent to a predicate device, is very much a navigation of what your goals are as a business. And I think that is best navigated through a pre-submission process. And typically we would want you to propose what predicate device or devices you believe that you're substantially equivalent to, if you believe that it would fall under a 510K process, and that the risk, first of all, it's the level of risk. So for moderate risk devices, 510K substantial equivalence is possible, or a de novo. And I think there are advantages of both. Certainly the 510K process is more straightforward, particularly because you have a product to compare to. But the de novo process also has advantages in that you're creating a classification that you set the requirements for. And if we agree with those, what we call special controls are appropriate for that class of device, there are certainly advantages to having that for others to follow in the future. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does perfectly. Thanks a lot, Sean. And actually, if we all agree with that, since we wanted to give an opportunity for question and answer, and I'm sure that there will be plenty of them. I think we can actually move on to this part of the exchange and open to questions from the audience. We're running for mics, but that will be very soon.
Thanks. There is a saying in the tech which says US invents, China develops, and Europeans regulate. For the same product, how long it will take to apply for either the European market, the US market, or the Chinese one?
Okay, that's the 1 million question. I guess it depends, and it depends on the product in particular.
Second question,
Yeah.
what's the average price about to apply for this kind of topic?
Okay, do you have a particular type of technology in mind so that maybe we are a bit more focused on the answer?
For example, I'm assisting a company which make belts with airbag, things like this. And we're planning to apply for one of these three or three of them, but question of money and different, we have to find the best one or the three. I've been working for 18 years in China, so I know they are very speed, and I would like to, in the global competition, it's part of the game.
Well, I think none of the panelists are maybe totally competent for China, but we can at least have a start with the European perspective and maybe turn it to Sean for the US one. So who would like to jump into the swimming pool?
In terms of time to apply and to obtain a certificate at the end of the application and the process, it's necessary to keep in mind that we are in a specific situation today in Europe because of, I said again, the recertification of all legacy devices. So this recertification of all legacy device keep most of the capacity of the notified body today and don't give to a strong opportunity for new company, new devices to be to apply and to be certified in short time. We have an amendment of the regulations today, which give us the opportunity to have a longer transition period because the regulators decided to extend the transition period up to 2027 and 2028, end of 2027 and 2028, depending on the type of medical devices and the class of risk of medical devices. So because we have now this new transition period, we are able to open more capacity to new device, and I expect that we will be able to get in standard time of certification for the next future. The time of certification is very dependent of your product, your type of product, the class of risk. We have to do a product review of the technical file and an audit of the quality management system. I think in a standard way, without this specific situation, we would be able to certify on between 9 months and 1 year. If you are well prepared, if your technical file is well prepared, if you have a QMS in place and so on. It's not the case today, but it would be in the future, perhaps in 2 years ago, in 2 years. It was the case before this transition. In terms of price, it's very dependent of the job to do, the time spent on the product review and the quality management system, the audit of the QMS. So, and it's dependent of the class of risk of the medical devices. So I think it's very difficult to give you any idea of amount for this certification.
Just a very quick add-on to support what this was said by the notified body. First of all, we are in a specific period of implementing with capacity issue on namely legacy device. I just want to recall the goal of the new regulation and to offer a proper a framework to allow assessment of the new medical device and innovative medical device with a confidence for healthcare practitioner, with the confidence in patient. So obviously there is an investment to do that. I recall that the CE mark allows the placing on the market on all the EU territories, but some other areas in the world are very welcome the CE mark, so it's a guarantee of safety. So and regarding the cost of the certification, I think one of the key points is, as I said, the more you are prepared, the more you look the situation on the right side to say, okay, I have to do that, I have to do that, I have to do that. And the more you are prepared with, if necessary, some support from a competent authority or from support of a competent authority, you gain time during the certification process, and the more you are more prepared, the more you define the strategy to put your product on the market, even start with US or start with Europe or start with and so on, the more you gain, you have a process of low energy to go on the market and with a low price. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before maybe I give the floor to Sean to get his perspective from the FDA, maybe one thing I will dare to add. I think the way you need to think about it is not in terms of price, but in terms of equivalent time. And as indicated by Lionel and Thierry, it's a little bit of chicken and egg, depending on the readiness of your regulatory dossier, depending on the readiness of your quality management system. Nobody can tell you now in principle how much that will cost, or unless giving you something very empirical that in the end may not apply at all to your situation. So number one, like we said before, with consultation with the authority, the more you're prepared, the more you are aligned with the expectations, and the quicker the process, and if it's quicker, it is cheaper. That's a kind of easy rule. And Sean, now I guess, again, for you, for an FDA perspective, at least the question around the cost is a little bit easier to treat because it's kind of set in stone depending on the regulatory process that will be followed by the company. But maybe to pick your brain a bit, maybe return from experience regarding timeline that may actually differ very substantially depending on the regulatory process that will apply to the company.
Yeah, I would say online there are a number of analyses about the cost, I believe, but time-wise, it's a 90-day review of review time at the FDA for a 510K. The majority of those submissions are cleared within about 6 months or so. As I said, it ranges because of what issues are there when you come in. If you have a very clean file with all your ducks are in a row, it will go pretty smoothly and quickly. But I think that's probably the best estimate that I can give you.
Thanks a lot, Sean. And then maybe a little bit addition from me again, just to illustrate the point. Once again, we need to distinguish the 90 days mentioned by Sean, which are really, I would say, just what is set in the US regulation versus the reality, which is actually more toward that 6 months that Sean indicated. And once again, chicken and egg. I've seen 510K application lasting for over a year, just because of the fact that there is that clock stop principle that the FDA will apply. And sometimes the clock stop is just asking you a question that will take you an hour to respond, and then you're good. Or it's actually because your 510K is too weak, and actually there are actual supportive data missing in there that will ask you 6 months to generate. So once again, I mean, it's impossible for me to compare timeline in a fair manner across that jurisdiction, and everything comes back to the reality of what you have developed, the soundness of your evidence, and actually your alignment, I would say ahead of time, to the expectation of the regulator. I think we had another question from the...
I have another chicken and egg question. So it's like 2 questions in one. basically, I would like to know, compare the medical devices and in particular the implants to drug certification. And last year, the FDA passed an act on the use of non-animal data to start clinical trials, basically. So the use of in silico models, the use of in vitro models like organs on chips, organoids, these kind of technologies. And so my question is about like what can we expect in the implant field, the medical device field, in terms of animal studies? Like, will they be like forbidden in the future, or will full in vitro packages be accepted in the US or in Europe anytime soon? Like, what's the forecast about that? And then there's the secondary question, like in these new ways of evaluating devices, who certifies the analytical tools of the certification bodies?
Shall we give the floor to Sean in the first place? So, Sean, again, not to put you on the spot here, but because FDA in particular issue a number of guidelines regarding in silico validation of medical devices, maybe that would be actually a good question for you to take as a start.
Yeah, I don't think I can answer specifically. I know that the direction that we are going is finding every feasible use for in silico models where that is, scientifically valid to provide support for an intended use. So we're very much actively exploring that use, because it often is the least burdensome approach if it's scientifically valid.
Thanks a lot, Sean. Lionel, Thierry, on this one?
It would be difficult for me to answer to this question because I haven't the answer. I think it's a good question, and we'll take it and perhaps come back with it. We will have to work on that topics. It's clear, it's for the future, and I think it would be very important to introduce in the process of evaluation those types of evaluation. Before certifying medical devices, I certified aircraft, and I know that in that topics we used in the past some in silico and modelization to demonstrate the compliance of the aircraft to specific topics. And it has been approved by the agencies, the European and the US agencies. So I'm sure that we will be able to get into that topics for the future, but I haven't the answer today.
No, same thing. There is a discussion at EMA level. There is discussion at working group, namely NET working group at European level. I think, once again, I talk about IMDRF software guidance issued a few years ago now. And we placed the question of some numeric simulation and so on in this. And obviously, we'll follow. And the regulatory system in Europe is quite evolving, because the essential requirements are very general. So it's allow the possibility to introduce new way too. And as I said, since the competent authority or the notified body could not oppose the fact that the way to assess this point of the conformity is not strong, there is a difficulty for the competent authority to say, no, it's not enough. So by the past, I have some question on clinical evaluation or so on, namely on implant. And on that way, we can propose to see in pre-market the result, and see in post-market the possibility to go on, to move on. And obviously, we have to take into account of the regulatory framework, the environment, the question of ethics for animal testing. So we will move on this kind of solution, namely I recalled some works on cells and cells assessment for disinfecting for prion disease to replace studies on mice and so on. So we will move on that question, but together with Notified Body, we are in the same working group.
Thank you, Matt. Since actually we started, I'm sorry, Sean, were you speaking?
I'm sorry, if I could just add, I think where we've had the most success with these computer modeling methods is in MRI evaluation, so safety of use of pacemakers and defibrillators in MRI. So that has been used to put those on the market.
Thanks a lot, Sean, for that additional comment. Since we started the roundtable a bit later than planned, I guess we have actually at least one, maybe two questions we can still take.
Oui.
Go ahead. Oui.
Jean-Louis French, je vais poser ma question en français si vous acceptez de traduire. Ma question concerne les essais cliniques et les patients synthétiques. Donc la première partie de la question pour Monsieur Forest, la FDA a accepté, si je ne me trompe pas, des patients synthétiques dans le cadre d'une étude clinique sur la pédiatrie. Donc je voulais savoir s'il y avait d'autres études en cours comme ça qui allaient être acceptées. Et dans une deuxième partie, quelle était la position des autorités européennes et françaises sur les patients synthétiques dans les bras témoins? Merci beaucoup.
Avec plaisir. Sean, I guess maybe you picked the keyword synthetic and clinical trial. So we hear back to, again, the dimension of validating a medical device in a clinical space without necessarily going through actual patients. And a little bit of number one, the direction you see the idea might be taking in that, and the recent achievement of a pediatric actually device being approved that way. And number two, if you see, I would say, any possibility for that clinical validation approach to be sort of a bit more generalized, and really, I would say the future for, I would say, medtech clinical validation.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I heard the question. So is this about use of real-world data?
Exactly.
Real-world clinical data?
Exactly,
yes.
That's the point.
Yeah, so this is, again, something we're very much exploring, particularly, well, with a number of different use cases, but particularly in devices that use artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's, I think, a key method to monitor and understand on an ongoing basis how those devices change over time, and to support the use of those devices, in particular use environments and use cases. I think there's more to come on this topic, and we're certainly learning how this can be applied.
Thanks a lot, Sean. And would you actually agree that this is typical, an excellent topic for a pre-submission meeting with the FDA in order to, on a case-by-case approach, be discussing with them these opportunities?
Absolutely, yes, and it will be very much, case-by-case understanding what the data opportunities are.
Thank you very much, Sean. Emmanuel, I think we need to wrap up, right? Okay, so we just, again, would like to thanks all of you for your questions and interest, and deep thanks for the panelists who contributed actually very brilliantly to this dialogue. Sean, thanks very much for your contribution, and looking forward to the next one. Thank you all, and again, wish you a nice rest of your day at PariSanté Campus.